Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight on Tuesday, March the 11th. That makes this the news for Monday, March the 10th, day 1111 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. I'm Peter Alexievich, coming to you live at 5 from beautiful downtown Kyiv, a major European capital city currently under siege. You can probably hear the air raid sirens in the background. Hey, Manda Bear. Because we are under constant drone attack these days. Just last night, we saw nearly 180 drones sent at the territory of Ukraine. And of those, the Ukrainian armed forces did a phenomenal job with a nearly 98% interception rate. Russia is desperate to pause this conflict. And they are literally throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, at Ukraine. How's everybody doing tonight? I see some of the peeps are coming in. Manda Bear is here. Who else is here? The time of the live is a complicated thing for the next 3 weeks. For the next 3 weeks, 5 o'clock in New York is 11 o'clock Eastern European time. And depending on where you are in Europe and whether or not you've switched to daylight savings time, the live may be at a time that is different for you. Hey, Chef Deb. Hey, Nashville. How you doing, Rusty? Yeah, Val, that's the reality of the situation. So the U.S. has already changed its clocks ahead. Ukraine has not and does not until the 30th of the month. So so normally we're live at midnight Eastern European time. But it was funny when the air raid sirens went off. I looked at the clock, and something I forgot about it, to be honest. It was only when the air raid sirens went off, and I looked at the clock and I thought, wait a minute. It's only 11 here, but they've already changed the time in New York. And this live is based on New York time. Hey, Richard. Hey, Michael Daly. Yeah, Tesla shares are down about 15%. From about a high of almost 300 down to about just over 200, right? Maybe about 240, 230, 240, something like that, I think was the close today. And that's good news for everybody. You know, Elon Musk tweeted or made a statement that he could shut off Starlink and the front line would collapse. Oh, that's pretty. You're a talent. You are really a talent, D-Fire. Wow, neato. So Musk made this claim that well, you know, you're right, Zach. That's exactly what Donald Trump wants. Well, the Ukrainians seem to be making some progress with Eutelsat to replace Starlink so that they can't be held hostage and threatened in this way. And that'd be a good move for the Ukrainians, I think. I really do. It is time to cut ties with the United States. The United States is demonstrating that it is in the hands of evil people. It's just that simple. And I think, hey, G2, I think that Zach hits it on the head. What's going to happen here over the next... Now, we just heard today Trump say on the subject of the absolutely outrageous cessation of intelligence sharing, right? Remember, the U.S. gave Ukraine all these weapons to defend itself with. HIMARS, ATACMS, right? And now we've taken away the intelligence sharing that lets them use these weapons. The French have stood up. Sebastien Lecornu, the defense minister for France, said that he would begin intelligence sharing with Ukraine to try to fill the gap that the Americans have left. But that's going to take time. Hey, KC, good to hear it, pal. So it's going to take time for the French intelligence sharing to ramp up for the Ukrainians. In the meantime, they are at risk because they can't strike those long-range targets using American weapons the way that we would want them to be able to, right? Trump, for his part, in an interview on Air Force One today, said the words that we've almost restarted the intelligence sharing. It's practically restarted. Now, that's a meaningless statement, right? Trump did sell out Ukraine and the United States G2. I'm with you. Sorry, very dry. Hey, Michael. So on Air Force One today, Trump did say the words that we've almost restarted intelligence sharing with Ukraine, a meaningless statement. But I think that what he's alluding to is that tomorrow in Saudi Arabia, representatives of Ukraine, Zelensky will not be there, because the Trump administration has said very clearly that it wants Zelensky gone, that it doesn't want to deal with Volodymyr Zelensky, which is the biggest gift it could give to the Russians, right? So tomorrow in Saudi Arabia, I believe that what is going to happen is that the U.S. delegation is going to present the minerals deal to the Ukrainian delegation, and that it will probably be a worse deal than it was before the fiasco last week in the White House. And they are absolutely going to pressure Ukraine to sign that deal with the idea that the only security guarantees anybody needs is me. It's me. I'm your guarantee. Which is what Trump said at the White House when Zelensky pressed him on security guarantees. Outrageous, childish, insane. And it would be insane of the Ukrainians to accept the deal. Now, here's the good news. Here's the good news. If the Ukrainians sign tomorrow, there isn't a deal. There's only the framework for creating a deal. That's all there is, a framework for creating a deal. The hard work of sitting down and ironing out a deal, well, hell, that could take 4 years. I bet it will take 4 years. I bet it'll take at least 4 years. So if it gets intelligence and military aid and humanitarian aid restored to Ukraine, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. If it doesn't do at least that much, I really hope the Ukrainians don't bow to this pressure. It is outrageous that the United States is acting in this bullying fashion to an ally whom we have supported, and the silence from the Republicans who have supported Ukraine is deafening. Feisty is saying that the stream is glitching badly. Is anybody else having that trouble? Should Feisty just jump out and jump back in again? Or do we need to restart the stream? Oh, please. What he's doing to Canada is outrageous. Seems to be good for everybody else, Feisty. USA has given Ukraine enough. Your leader needs to wake up and let himself be a slave to Russia. Just give the country away to the aggressor. Reward them for their aggression. That's this guy's idea of what would be a good idea. Thanks, Chef Deb. Hey, Canada. Hey, Wales. Yeah, Lars, it's that time again. Can you believe we're here again at another time change? For those of you just joining us, I just want to be clear. If the live is on at a different time, it's because you have not yet done daylight savings time. The United States has done daylight savings time, and so we're on at 11 Eastern European time. Oh. Hey, Danny boy, thanks. Canada doesn't need to prevail. America needs to come to its senses and start treating our friends like friends again. Start treating our friends like friends again. Oh, yeah, Michael, you don't have daylight savings time in Arizona. So we will be 1 hour earlier for the next 3 weeks. Ukraine is so small to fight about. Yes, it's so small, yet it has held off the Russians for 3 years. It has done incredible damage to Russia and continues to do so. Just over the weekend, we saw a metallurgical plant struck by Ukrainian drones. We saw an oil refinery in Samara, that's like 1,000 kilometers from Ukraine, hit. And it's not the first time that oil refinery's been hit. It had been hit before. The last time was March 25th last year. So it's like the 1 year anniversary gift. The gift that keeps on giving, Ukrainian drones. Now that oil refinery, it is being reported that the hydro treatment unit was struck. Now that may be familiar. Hey, Roy. That may be familiar to people because the hydro treatment units were also struck at Ryazan, Novoshatinsk, and one other. It just escapes me right now. Why is this important? What happens in a hydro treatment unit that these are now what's being what apparently the Ukrainians are now being targeted? As I understand it, the hydro treatment unit is essential in creating diesel fuel and aviation fuel. So if you want to ground the Russian fighters, cut off the supply of aviation fuel. If you want to stop the Russian tanks in their tracks, stop the supply of diesel fuel, right? So somebody's saying here, I don't know anything about this, but apparently there was a cyber attack today on X, and Musk is blaming Ukraine. I mean, okay. Not as if IP address spoofing is a hard thing to do or something that the Russians can't do. I mean, really. So I don't know anything about that story. I'm sorry. I can't really comment on it other than to say that I think it's nonsense. X was down, not a big problem. Good, but Ukraine didn't do it. Some hacking group already claimed it. Oh, interesting, Roy. Thanks, pal. Now, there are two big stories. Hey, Julian. OMP. Hardly. Larry Kaufman. Hey, everybody. A lot of the old peeps are in. If Putin don't accept Trump conditions after signed contract, it will anger Trump. Well, I mean, so far, Trump has just given Putin everything he wants. So I don't see, I mean, if Putin is just given everything he wants, why would he object? How likely do you think it is to achieve some kind of a sensible ceasefire deal this year? No ceasefire deal is sensible, in my opinion. I think that it's a joke. I think that it is nothing but an excuse to give Putin time to breathe and rearm. That's what a ceasefire is, especially as America is not going to give any security guarantees. So I am not in favor of a ceasefire without some security guarantees for Ukraine. It's just an excuse for Russia to regroup. Yes. Yes. We need a just and lasting peace. And appeasing Vladimir Putin is never going to get you that. It is never going to get you that. Right, Lissy, the terms that they're pushing on Ukraine is a surrender, not a ceasefire. Give up 18% of the country. Get out of Kursk. And that's the next thing we want to talk about, is the front line. Sorry, that sore throat of mine, it's almost better. It's almost better. Kursk. There are two big stories coming out of Kursk. And a buddy of mine hit me up and said that the two stories were being confused in the media. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, or if he was just looking at some Russian disinformation. But let me be clear. Two big things happened in Kursk this weekend. One, the Russians attempted, like they did in Avdiivka, to crawl through, this is just insane to me, a pipe that's 55 inches wide. I have a 56-inch chest, right? I'm a 56 long when I buy a suit coat. I wouldn't be able to fit in that pipe. But 100 Russian soldiers crawled into it. They did not all make it out the other end. Some died of asphyxiation in the pipe because proper ventilation was not provided. Respirators were not provided. It must have been a nightmare of almost 4 days in an endless coffin. No, it was Russians that went through the pipe, to the best of my knowledge, John. Though the fog of war, right? It's hard to tell. But as I understand it, 80% of the Russians died in the attempt. Either died inside the pipe or were the victims of Ukrainian attacks. The pipe will go down in history as one of the greatest planning failures of an operation ever. It was a disaster, a complete unmitigated disaster that highlights the incompetence and callousness of the Kremlin regime. Now, the other thing that happened in Kursk this weekend is that about 4,000, as I understand it, about 2 battalions, about 4,000 North Koreans, along with a brand new 1,500 North Korean gunners running the new Koksan self-propelled North Korean guns, came at Ukraine hard and heavy, trying to cut the supply lines. And it appears that they have been successful. I'm sorry, the supply lines to the Kursk salient. As I understand it, that has led General Syrskyi to order a general withdrawal from Kursk. So it appears as though the Kursk incursion is over. Now, before anybody starts cheering for the Russian victory, I want to point out to everybody that for 7 months and 4 days, the Russians have been have seen the Ukrainians go to bed and wake up every night on Russian territory, in control of Russian territory. The vaunted, unassailable, unbeatable Russia has been occupied by little Ukraine for 7 months. So, Julian, let me come back to that. Let me come back to that. Let me talk about the Kursk incursion first. For 7 months, the Ukrainians held the ground. For 7 months and 4 days, it has been an embarrassment to Vladimir Putin. It has cost something like 30,000 Russian troop lives. It has cost them 78,000 troops pinned in Kursk when they are needed in Ukraine. It has cost them 4,000 North Koreans, and they've had to bring in another 17,000 North Koreans just to try to do damage you control. And of course, Lars, you're right. They can always go back. They can always go back. It has been a significant PR defeat for Russia. Now, why are they pulling out of Kursk now? Julian mentioned that it might have something to do with intelligence sharing being stopped from the U.S. Now, this is not my area, but the military experts that I listen to, including Dominic Nichols on Ukraine, the latest podcast, who, if you listen to today's episode, the analysts that he listens to are the same analysts I listen to. And they all say the same thing. It is unlikely that this withdrawal from Kursk is the result of a lack of U.S. intelligence sharing. And there's a bunch of reasons for that, but it doesn't appear that that's the case. Don is brilliant. Isn't he, John Maxwell? Hell, that motherfucker. I could listen to that guy talk all day. He is just compelling, rational, compassionate. Brilliant fella. So it doesn't appear that it's intelligence sharing. It appears to be more, look, nobody thought the Ukrainians were going to be able to hold on in Kursk for 6 weeks, let alone 6 months. The Russians have dedicated huge resources to kicking them out, and it has cost Russia dearly. The Russians made a significant advance, again, a costly advance. They made a significant advance and a significant movement to cut the supply lines. Rather than cling on to land by their bleeding fingernails, the way the Russians do, the Ukrainians are choosing Ukrainian lives over land. Also, they are less incentivized to bleed and die for it because Trump and Putin are on the same page. There's never going to be any kind of peace deal or ceasefire that doesn't involve Ukraine withdrawing from Kursk. So it seems that now is the critical time to get those 12 to 18,000 troops. We don't really know how many Ukrainians are in Kursk, but it's likely between 12 and 18,000. Get them back out of Kursk and get them on the front line where right now the Ukrainians are making advances. Now, I don't want to make too big a deal of this, right? Because we've been burned before with hope. But the Russian front line is not looking good. The Ukrainians are retaking positions all up and down the line. And today there was significant movement in Toretsk, a city that fell to the Russians a couple months ago, is now being retaken by the Ukrainians. It appears that they're not only that, just north of Kupiansk, Ukrainians advanced 7.5 square kilometers in the last weekend. Russia hasn't had a week where they took 7 square kilometers in at least 3 weeks. That's another thing, Lars. That's a good point to make. Another value to the Kursk incursion. was drawing troops away from the Ukrainian front line. That was also a success. The Kursk incursion succeeded on so many levels that the fact that the Ukrainians are making a tactical withdrawal from there now should not disappoint anybody, shouldn't depress you. It did its job. That operation paid for itself in spades. Russian military is weak and divided. They are. Fighter bomber. No, not fighter bomber. I'm sorry. Romanov. If you know the Russian mill blogger Romanov, who's closely been aligned with the Kremlin for years and years, Romanov was all over that gas pipeline attack today. Scathing indictment of the incompetence of the Russian military command. Scathing indictment. Hey, Parta, we're on daylight savings time again, pal. We're on daylight savings time again. It's that time of the month or the year. I have no idea how this war will end. Nobody knows how this war will end. And to quote Sir General Richard Sharif, we are at the most dangerous time. This right now, where the U.S. is in the pocket of the Kremlin and is strong-arming Ukraine for a surrender, we are at the most desperate, difficult time. Russia's in trouble. Russia's in a lot of trouble. And how long they can hang on is anybody's guess. You know, the Russian people are, in the words of Stalin, the Russian people are like a chicken. You can pluck them till they bleed, but if you throw them a little corn, they'll follow you. And the Russian oligarchs have made sure that nobody has any corn but them. We are freaking out in the Baltics. It's insanity. It's insanity. It's insanity. Hey, Louise Dalton, how you doing? Julian, I'm afraid of that too. Trump has been making noise that there will be no peace negotiations until Zelensky is removed. That may be one of the things that they're strong-arming the Ukrainians on tomorrow. Despite the fact that after trying in a very Russian way to manipulate Zelensky's biggest opponents here in Ukraine, both his political opponents stood by his side today and said, we will not hold elections in contradiction to our Constitution at a time of war. We will not expose the Ukrainian people to the dangers of gathering in public for a free and fair election, to the dangers of Russian drone strikes and missile strikes. We will not do that. We will not do that at a time when so many of our people are out of the country or in occupied territories and their voices can't be heard. So the effort of the Trump administration to bribe, coerce, or otherwise influence Ukrainian politicians to be pro-Washington, pro-Moscow, and take Zelensky on in an open election has failed. It's failed. So I don't know what the U.S., or I don't know what this war is going to look like or how it's going to end. But I believe in Ukraine. And I believe that Russia is a failed society. I believe that the United States, the federal system, subverted the way it has been in the re-election of the person of Donald Trump by the Kremlin, is nobody's friend. It's no friend to Ukraine. It's no friend to its own people. As we saw today when the federal government stopped the WIC program. That's the Women, Infants, and Children's program that feeds the poorest people in America. Does anybody remember FDR's statement when he introduced the New Deal? He said With these protections in place, the American people will never suffer the worst depredations of poverty. And that is what we want. Yeah, Mel, can you hear it? So what you're listening to are the sounds of anti-aircraft fire. And what that means is that the mobile defense units are out protecting us in our sleep like they do every day. They are the best. And every productive moment that I have in Ukraine, I owe directly to them. There's no two ways about it. So thank you, folks. Okay, what else? Let me see, what time? Let me see, I have a couple other notes here. The biggest Ukrainian flag in the world was unfurled on the ellipse in Washington, D.C. That was a beautiful sight. That's the same place, where Trump started the January 6th riot, right? The ellipse. Whoops, sorry. Hold on. I apologize. I do have more notes about some other things happening because there are some interesting things going on. Why does nothing work for me? I dislike Android so much. It is really a problem. Okay, we did the two big Kursk stories. The Ukrainian flag being unfurled, French intelligence sharing with the with the Ukraine. In Chechnya and Dagestan, two autonomous republics of the Russian Federation, the Telegram channel, Telegram has been banned, completely banned in Dagestan and Chechnya. Now, I'm not opposed to that. I'm not a fan of Telegram. I'd like to call it Kremlingram because I don't believe anything happens on Telegram without the Kremlin's knowledge and approval. So I'm not a fan. But to see it shut down is very interesting because it is a broadly used application by military, by civilians, by everybody. So I'm curious why now they are anxious to shut it down. Georgescu in Romania will not be permitted to run in the next presidential election. Good. He took money from Russia. He's a Russian asset. They're going to lock him up. As well they should. And the United States could learn a fucking thing from the Romanians, that's for sure. We got some interesting satellite images from the storage facility in Vladivostok, where the Russians keep their MTLBs. Those are like armored personnel carriers, as I understand it. At the beginning of the war, there were over 600 of them in storage at this base. In Vladivostok, mind you, 9,000 miles away. The satellite imagery today that we saw shows only 90 left in the yard. And this would go to the claims of some intelligence officials that the far eastern arsenals, weapons depots, and stockyards have been emptied. Anybody who calls the Azov warriors Yahtzees is a useful idiot of the Russians. It is nonsense. Nonsense. The other thing about that satellite image is it's from October. It's from October. We're several months along. So that's all good news. All right. I want to thank Arn, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. I think I might have had another sponsor too. But if I did, I'm sorry. I didn't look. I got caught unawares with the start time of this. So I'm going to make it Lars, and I'm going to make it Blue Ariel Silk, who is a member of the Patreon and gets 2 live sponsorships every month. Oh, was it you, Little Red? I'm so sorry. I'll do you tomorrow. I'm so sorry. Please accept my apologies. So tonight it'll be Blue Ariel Silk. Tomorrow it'll be Little Red Sunflower. And it'll be Arn all week. That son of a bitch. He wants to corner the market or something. I could not do what I do here without people like Little Red Sunflower, without Arn, without Blue Ariel Silk, without all of you. Chris Carter. I don't know if Chris Carter is here tonight, but Chris Carter is a longtime supporter of this channel. Fitz, Leo Ring, Lars from Encino Tech. I mean, the list goes on and on. My guys in San Diego, Bobby and Daniel Ballard, Eli, Cynthia, Beatrice Sella. I've got 102 Patreon supporters now. How many people can say that there's 102 people that support you in your life? It is exceedingly humbling. And it encourages me to work ever harder to try to get the most compelling and informative information to you. If you are a Patreon supporter, please check out the latest COCT post regarding Operation Denver. Okay, so thanks to Lars, who has the Discord server. Thanks to Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group. And let's go to Q&A. And we'll take some questions and see if I have any answers. I probably don't, because right now the world is very confusing. Colina Studios, I'm so sorry. Yes, it's daylight savings time in U.S. And so for all those of us in Eastern Europe or anywhere in Europe that hasn't turned the clocks back, will be an hour earlier for the next 3 weeks. It's not until March 30th that Ukraine turns the clocks back. No, you cannot drink the tap water here. You can't drink the tap water in any of the former Soviet bloc states. Now, that's changed recently in Poland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, but they've made major investments since the end of the USSR to clean up the water. So Ukraine has been much more under the thumb of Russia since the breakup of the USSR than the Baltic states and the Warsaw Pact were. They haven't been able to foster the kind of consumer economy that drives the tax base that lets you make those infrastructure projects. And so it is true. Ukraine, you cannot drink the water in. However, I want to point out to everybody, this is a fun thing to do. It's a great map to look at. Just Google maps of places you can drink the water, then Google a map of enemies of Russia. You will notice that in all the places you can drink the water, those people are also enemies of Russia. Because the West is an enemy of poverty. Russia is a champion of poverty. They want their people impoverished. They want all the wealth consolidated in the hands of a few. And so it's not a 1-to-1 ratio because of Ukraine, but for the most part, it is a telling map of the societies in which you do the basic first thing you have to fucking do for people to live. Get them clean water. And then the opposite of that. The people who do not care how many civilian lives get thrown away, as long as they get the oil profits, as long as they control everything. Gunther, I don't know enough about internal Ukrainian politics to comment on that. I didn't even know, is there a rivalry between Zelensky and Klitschko? One's the mayor of Kyiv, the other's the president. I'm not even aware that there's a rivalry, if there even is. Based on your question, I don't know anything about that. I've never met Klitschko. I've never seen him. I've never heard anything from him. As the mayor of the town, he is loved as much as he is hated. Very much like Zelensky. Yeah, I don't follow boxing. The word on the street, Kuda, is that the U.S. ordered the U.K. not to share intelligence with Ukraine. So any intelligence that the U.K. gets from the U.S., they are not to pass it on to Ukraine. Leham Starry 1. I don't know what that means. Why do they follow orders from the U.S.? It's a great question. Monkey. I am a monkey. I am a monkey in shoes. As are you. Oh, here's a guy who's wishing me death by a Russian missile. Well, thank you so much. If I were to die at the hands of the Russians because of a missile strike on Kyiv, I would consider it an honorable death, a great way to go. If I were to be targeted by the Russians and murdered, everybody should cheer because I did something right in my life. Amen, beach lady. Amen. Fuck him. Fuck him in the ear. I probably shouldn't talk that loudly because I am in Kyiv and there are a lot of Russian operatives here. Oh, thank God I never leave my apartment. I'm almost Ukrainian. I wouldn't claim that distinction. I'm an American. And I came here to learn about our mutual enemy, the Russians, from the people who know them best, the Ukrainians. And I am learning. I'm learning a lot. And I'm learning that the biggest thing that you cannot show them is weakness. You have to be strong with them. You have to bitch slap these bastards back into the 18th century where they belong. Right, Egley? You're right. The Russians do not have time for me. That's why I can be so brave. I am with you guys, Tala. Yes, I am. Yeah, Ethan, that's bullshit right there. You see this bullshit right here that Ethan typed? CIA and FSB do love to award exceptional civilian journalists. What a load of shit. To compare the FSB and the CIA. You show me where the CIA has disappeared journalists. I got a list from the FSB. That's no problem. But see, this kind of bullshit of conflating that the Russians and the Americans are the same. That's Russian propaganda right there. And you're a useful idiot for repeating it. Hey, Rich C. Yeah, USAID is very disheartening. The situation with USAID is very, very disheartening. All USAID funding has been cut off. They are saying now, well, watch how you say things then, Ethan, if you want to stay around here. Because repeating Russian bullshit is going to get you blocked real fucking fast. And I do not give a fuck. Now see, Russell, I don't think that that could be, right? There might be some intelligence sharing going on between the FSB and the CIA these days. There might be at the behest of the White House. But I believe that the vast majority of people in the CIA are there because they are working to preserve the American way of life. And they understand that that is not the Russian way of life, that they are inherently, objectively opposed to each other. And conflating them like Ethan did is a load of shit. It's a load of shit. Useful idiots who believe memes they read on the internet. It's garbage. It's nonsense of the worst kind. Yeah, no, I didn't, Ethan. You said the CIA and the FSB disappeared journalists. That was what you were... Okay, look, I'm not talking to you anymore. You're done. I understood you completely. We all did. Okay, hey, Feisty. Okay. Let me just see. We have about 9 minutes left. Questions, comments? Jasper, you're right. That's a good example of Russian disinformation being very effective against Americans who never leave America. I mean, Europeans make fun of us because we never leave America, right? But how many Europeans never leave Europe or the Mediterranean area, right? You're lucky. You can get to Asia, Africa, and Europe on a 2-hour flight for most of Europe. That is not the case for America, you know? I'm paying attention, Polka. Yeah, he keeps fucking with the stock market, right? That might be what is needed to get rid of him, is make a bunch of rich people poor. The stock market's already lost $3.4 trillion in value. Trillion with a T under Professor Bone Spurs there. Everybody's got Russian propaganda problems. That's why a country with a population half of America has a GDP of 1/12 of America. Because they spend their money trying to destabilize successful countries rather than investing in their own failed state. Egley, I wish I knew. He's really got a hold. He's really got a hold on America, boy. Oh, it's helped the Russian ruble tremendously, Little Red. Trump's policies are actively devaluating the dollar, weakening it on the global stage. It's part of his strategy to wreck the economy so that he's the only one left with any money. I heard you said I can fly to Asia on a 2-hour flight. Can you please elaborate? Well, maybe not 2 hours from Great Britain, right? But from here, I can be in Georgia in an hour if planes were running. That's Asia. You know, you can argue that it's Europe, but it's not really. You know, what else is over there? Turkey. Turkey's Asia. How long does it take you to fly to Asia? How long does it take you to fly to Istanbul? Tommy Young, the dollar is down against all foreign currencies over the last 46 days since the subversion of the U.S. federal system. I mean, it may be back to the levels it was at 2 years ago, but it's down. Okay, so 3 or 4 hours from fucking Amsterdam. Jesus Christ, why are you harping on this? That is not the point. The point is that on a nonstop flight, you can get to 3 continents from anywhere in Europe. Not the case in America. Wow, really, Lars? Of course, because you can't fly over Russia, right? To get to the Philippines now from Norway, you got to fly all the way around Russia. Oh, you poor bastard. Hey, Alex. I am not, I assume that you're saying Seagal, meaning Steven Seagal. No, Steven Seagal is a piece of shit. Traitor to America. You can fly to Russia from your house. Well, you don't belong in here then. Anybody booking flights to Russia is of no interest to me. Oh, this is interesting. We have an actual flight attendant here. A flight to Tbilisi from where I live is now 5 hours instead of 2.5 to 3 because we have to fly around Russia. Oh, yeah. Trump is opening up all of America to the Russian mafia, to gangsters and grifters of all types. And he's letting them loose on his credulous maggot fans to just pick their pockets, shorten their lives, and make life harder for everybody. And none of it makes any sense, right? Because we all know the outcome of these policy decisions. None of it makes any sense unless you accept the premise that Trump works for Putin, willingly, unwillingly, wittingly, or unwittingly. He is a Russian asset and needs to be removed at the earliest possible time. Right, Little Red? Then it all makes sense. Peladeus, that's a great question. We may have seen, Trump has already said that after this election, nobody would have to vote anymore. He said that. So we don't know what's going to happen. The United States citizens have to stand up and reclaim their country from the people who have taken it from them. Wow, the ruble's recovered about 18% of its value since Trump is in office. What? 800 billion debt to the U.S.? You're talking about the UK's currency reserves and T-bills? They have a maturity date. They can't be called in. They can be resold. You could sell them. But it's not a thing you can call in the debt. That's not what that is. That's an investment instrument. That's a way for everybody to make money. Leo Ring, that is my fondest hope, that America wakes the fuck up and follows suit with Romania. Hey, Bjorn, how you doing, pal? Hey, Hacky Sack Trav, how you living, pal? We're just about to wrap up here. Guys, again, No, Mel, I think you're talking about your foreign currency reserves and UST bills. That's what you're talking about, pal. If you're talking about something else, please send me the link. Okay. So thanks to Jay and Travis, our moderator team. Thanks to Nightshade, who has the Peters Peeps group. Thanks to Lars, who has the Discord server. And remember, everybody, we're on daylight savings time now for the U.S. So it's now 6 p.m. in New York, which means that for the next 3 weeks until Ukraine does daylight savings time, we will be an hour earlier for everybody else. And if you spring forward in the next couple weeks, we will be back at midnight again for you. But on Eastern European time, we'll be going at 11 p.m. Yeah, Nicola. Well, no, Nicola, aren't you in the U.S.? Or maybe you're not in the U.S. I think of you as American, but I don't know that, honestly. If you're British, Britain, it's going to be an hour earlier until you guys do daylight savings time. When does Great Britain do daylight savings time? Does anybody know? Oh, I'm sorry, you're in the UK. It'll be, well, not for you, Michael, because you don't do daylight savings time. So for you right now, it's like, I don't know, are you off 2 hours now? Yeah, I think you're off 2 hours, right? There's the hour for daylight savings time in New York, then the hour that you lost in Arizona. But for me, it's going to be an hour earlier until March 30th, yes. So that's a little confusing to me. I'm not sure how we affect those that don't do daylight savings time. It's a lot of math. Yeah, I got to figure that out. I don't know. Yep. So I guess like around April 1st, we'll be back to the regular. We'll all be on one clock again. Daylight savings time is such a waste of energy, boy. Jesus Christ, why don't they give it up? All right, kids. Oh my God, Mel, did you ever take an economics class? Come on. What you're talking about are countries holding American dollars as reserve currencies in the form of U.S. Treasury bills. Those are investments for those countries. They're investments for us. We took that money, we invested it in the United States, and that increases the tax revenue, the tax base. We then, when those bills mature, and most countries hold that debt in 10, 20, and 30-year bonds, when those bonds mature, the respective governments turn them into the U.S. and we give them cash or more bonds. It's a way for everybody to make money. You can't just call in the debt. That's not a thing. You can resell those bonds to somebody else, but you're not going to be able to clip the coupons anymore. You're not going to realize the gains. And you're probably going to have to sell them at some kind of a loss to make them attractive. So it's not a thing, Mel. What you're talking about is not a thing. Yeah, common sense, you're not wrong. Thanks, GBW Leo. All right, kids, make it a great day. Talk to you later.